All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 39th episode of The Get Down. My name is Cream.
Gary W. here.
It's been a day. It's been a day.
I've been up since 3 a.m. So sorry if there's any lapses here or any lapse in just speaking in general.
Gary and I are getting fired up over here about venues.
This is what happens when, first of all, you work an 8-hour day, and then you were up firing super early. At like 7:58, I got my first notification via email from you.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep, so I was up doing work at the crack of dawn.
And then I got home. We've been jamming ever since, and we're back booking almost not a full weekend, but we're getting there. It's coming along.
We just booked 58 DJ gigs for the month of April,
which I think is great. We left off last January 2020 or February 2020 at 100. Roughly 95 to 100. So we're creeping back there. It's good to see, but all of the familiar stresses are rearing their ugly head within the last week or so because everything's getting back to normal, which is it's kind of nice to be stressed again.
You know what it's like it's a good stress, I guess. But
it is.
It's kind of like we haven't done this for a while, and like the fires that pop up throughout the week when like you're in the middle of like deep work on something else and you see like this notification and you're like, fuck, I really wish I didn't see that because I have to do this.
Right. And now I think we're trying to balance, things like GDU, things like this podcast, and then also like trying to pull back on some of those other stresses to refocus energy elsewhere. I think that's the new thing for us is learning how to deal with those things and then calm it down and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I think it's a good problem to have. And I think we're working through it better than we would have 2 years ago or whatever,
Yeah. So actually one of those, I don't want to call it a fire, but one of those problems that kind of arose was getting these text messages from managers and owners saying, hey, like you've had some guys in here and they're playing a little too much house. And we're still open format. We're still the same way we were prior to the pandemic. And it's like now we have to check ourselves and check our guys. Obviously, that's what our job is. And be like, hey guys, like this is where we're at. And we've been spoiled because of things like Twitch, because of things like live streaming on Instagram, like we were doing, let's say last year before Twitch really got moving, and also vibe dining, the way you would DJ for people that are sitting down eating. It's just a little different than what we were used to, but our owners and managers are still expecting the DJ, the Get Down DJ group experience like we had prior to pandemic, right?
Yeah, and I think I'm the number one culprit of this, not from the text messages, but just a mind state of, well, it's been a year of any sets that I have played, I just play whatever I want because there isn't a dance floor and there's not a need to really like feel like, oh, well, I have to keep the floor and make money so people stay here and the venue makes money, where it's like, well, everyone's sitting and it's like, you don't really get a ton of cues anyway. So I'm going to play what I want. And
yeah,
that's not necessarily the case because depending on the venue, you kind of have to get back to regularly scheduled programming.
Well, what you guys have seen. So when I was there in October, I did the same thing that we've all been guilty of, and that's playing what I want. Hey, I can play a little more deeper or like techier because listen, people are just sitting down anyway. Like nobody's up and dancing, but it's gotten to a point where people have gotten used to sitting down and now they're partying at their table, like full-fledged from videos that I see, at least, right? So if you can get to the point where it is a regular set and you can build people up, which we've seen in videos that people are getting, there is an arc. You can have an energy arc to your night. You can have a party with still people just sitting around their table or standing around their table, whatever it might be. Right. And now getting that ingrained into your head to be like, okay, I'm going to go rock this place instead of, well, I'm just going to go play for a bunch of people that are sitting down. Something we talked about a little 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people are, restrictions are easing a little, and there's more people, and it's warmer, so people are more excited to be out. So, yeah, I think all those things play into managers and venue owners and bookers being like, "Hey, let's get back to like playing open format and playing the way that we used to play at XYZ venue."
Would you say that this is essentially a PSA to all DJs that are like are going hard on Switch, and that like you really need to be mindful of, hey man, there's a difference between DJing in your bedroom for, even if it's 100 people on your Twitch stream or 200 people on your Twitch stream, it's still a different, a completely different medium, if you will, platform. You it's different. Twitch and live DJing is completely different. You're DJing for not only the people in the venue, but most importantly, the people that are booking you, right?
Right. Well, on Twitch, it's going to be people that are checking into your stream are people that probably know you or have heard of you or know your style, and they're coming to your channel to hear you play the way that they've heard you play on Twitch, or they heard your music that you produced or whatever it might be.
Right.
Whereas in a live venue, yeah, you're going to have people that come to see you specifically, but you're also going to have, the 30-year-old birthday party that's in the back on floor 2 that doesn't never heard of you, and they want to hear whatever they want to hear, in whatever genre.
What a difficult mindset to switch from, right? That like people are here to see me on my Twitch channel. And now you go into a venue, it's like people are here for the venue more or less. In some venues, the medium-sized venues, the venues that are open, because you know what, when you're going to see a DJ, it's usually at like a more major nightclub, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the name is. Like when people go to Birch, when Birch is open and they know DJ Cream's there every Saturday, that's different than going to see Cream at, maybe a smaller venue that you might be playing now, something that's a little more local. Right. And you have to mentally prepare yourself for going into that situation.
Yeah, I think it was kind of easy for me to flip the switch and just be like, all right, well, we're back to open format. Like, as long as I could rock how I want to rock in that style, yeah, like, let's go. I could do that too.
Yeah.
Yes,
but it's realizing that you need to do it. Some people don't have that awareness where they're like, okay, well, now I got to switch back over to this,
Yeah.
And that's where people get in trouble.
Well, yeah, and I think some of the texts or venue people that have hit us up, and like, this is a wake up call, like you said, that if you haven't been back to the venues, just remember you're not in your bedroom. You're playing out again, and you have to play the way you need to play for that particular venue. And I say it all the time. Like, I'll go play one venue and I'm playing only 124 to 128, and I'll go to another venue and I'm playing 70s music and 80s music and hip hop and reggae and moombahton and house music and Jersey club, and like it's a venue by venue basis, and you got to play the room.
That's our job. That's for sure.
I will say this though, I think no matter where you are, there's always a way to show the audience like what you're all about. There's still ways for me to be able to play some like bass house or deeper house, like in a room that's used to hip hop. I can get away with playing a 128 Kanye vocal over bass house. Like, it works. Maybe they might not be ready for it, but like, so you got to just get creative of working your style into whatever venue you're at too. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but
that's an interesting point, because some people do. Now we're talking, okay, go open format, but at the same time, you can't be too safe. This could get confusing. Like you still have to play your style. You have to have a distinct style that you play within the realm of playing open and stuff that people know. How different, like it's really hard to explain, right? But we also get those texts as well, or calls from owners where it's like, yeah, that guy was okay. And then you look at the playlist, like, this is a great playlist.
Yeah.
Like, this is a fantastic play. But, and then it's like, then the light bulb goes off. Oh, this was a very safe set.
Yeah.
And I've been there a million times, my first 1 or 2 or 3 nights in a place where you're just kind of like, toeing the line. So You have to go in and be ready to do what you were doing prior to quarantine. That's it. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Even if you have to imagine that there's a dance floor there, you know, then so
Use
be it.
those subtle cues, you know? You got to use the subtle cues to your advantage still. And listen, not so subtle cues in certain places also.
Oh man. Well, moving on from that, like as you said, like sometimes you walk into a place and you'll play all 124 to 128, and then you'll walk into another place and play 70s and 80s music and 90s music. You have a pretty wide range. As much as your good and close friends like to bust your balls that you don't have a wide range of musical knowledge, you do. Like where did your personal musical influence come from? Like from like 70s and 80s music, and then all the way up to like what you're DJing and playing.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was little, my dad has been in a band for as long as I've been alive. So there was always like classic rock on in the house, in the car. They would even get into like, like some soul stuff and some like folky stuff. Cause listen, my dad was a hippie, 100%. So like those were my early influences. But when I was like first starting to venture off into my own little like worlds of listening to music, I went down different rabbit holes. Like we talked about in a previous podcast, first on those like CD things where I would order like 10 CDs
Right.
for 10 cents or whatever it was, and be able to
Right.
like get a lot of different types of music that I wouldn't normally go buy.
Right.
But then once like Napster and LimeWire and whatever else started coming out, and I was able to like go look at all the albums that dropped on a Tuesday and download whatever I wanted. Like I
Okay.
started really digging deep into hip hop. And I fell in love with hip hop music, and I was obsessed with DJ Premier, RZA, Jay Dilla, Kanye West, like
Producers.
producers. That's what I
Right.
was always drawn to, producers. Um, and that's what got me into the hip
That
hop scene. I came to also then love, flow and bars and the rapper's individual style, but it was the beat that always got me hooked, especially initially.
it's an interesting take because I feel like, yeah, like you're right. When you talk about hip hop music that influenced, your start of DJing, it is all producer oriented. And, I get, is that why you went the producer route? Like when, like you almost jumped into producing your own sound for the music that you're DJing. I don't want to say first. You were DJing first, but you definitely like really went all in on producing your own stuff.
Yeah, when I was a kid, like I would use Audacity, and I would like create intro music for like the basketball team, my teams, our travel teams, for the baseball team on the bus. And then like we talked about me and making mixtapes, and I got into that. But like
Right.
I was playing around on Fruity Loops every day. Like I was doing that
Interesting.
before I had a turntable and a mixer.
Okay. So I was doing it the other way, where I
Yeah.
was I was hand making everything because the computer stuff was foreign to me, right? Because that didn't come into my life probably until '08, which I had already been DJing at that point for 10 years or 12 years. Um, in my bedroom and whatnot. Like I professionally probably for 7 at that point.
Yeah.
But like still, like I'm all in on turntables or CDJs. CDJs probably since '02. So and then all of a sudden Serato came in. That's when the computer came into my DJ life.
Right.
So it's kind of funny that like I guess you came into DJing, the computer was there. So
Right.
it was always a tool for you.
Right. And when I was in college, my roommate's older brother was in a hip hop group, and he was a producer. And so like we hung out with him a lot, and he was making beats, and I would sit in for sessions with him and the rapper that he worked with. And like then I started going to shows in the Lower East Side on Bowery and like all these like hidden spots that just further ingrained me into like that underground hip hop world.
It's really interesting because we've never actually talked about that. I never put that together, that like your introduction into DJing had a computer involved. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy to me.
Yeah, like I mean, we used to play records at my house, but I wasn't like mixing records on old
Right.
turntables. Like I would play the records my parents had, but
Oh my God. I was scratching records in like the
yeah, like I would
80s
scratch
and
on those and
like,
get yelled at, but
yo,
I didn't know what I was doing.
I used to get fucking yelled at all day. Like, I think I scratched up my uncle's Bruce Springsteen album back probably in like 89. I was like, it was just a bad move.
Yeah, I used to bump the Born in the USA album all day when I was little.
All day. That was just, I guess that was just one of those tracks, because that is one of those tracks that sticks out in my mind as like an 80s track. Like that, Born in the USA, I vividly remember there's video of me when I'm like 2, 3 years old singing it. So that was a big one. U2 was big for me back in the day. Where the Streets Have Their Names, the video, I think it was black and white. They were performing on a rooftop. Like really stuck out for me from when I'm very, very young. Man. And then there's little incremental things like second grade. My first CD that I ever bought was Pearl Jam Alive. My mom somehow let me have that.
Yeah.
I bought it at Sam Goody. Remember Sam Goody?
Sam Goody, I remember, in like the mall.
Yeah, the Mill Creek Mall in Secaucus. That's where I remember like bringing that home, bumping Jeremy and all these songs. So it's like into like, I don't want to say cutting edge music, but definitely just different music and at all
Yeah.
points in my life. And then I think 96, which I can't believe the summer of 96 is 25 years ago this summer, was the most influential time of music for me. So I talked about this, so many classic albums, Reasonable Doubt, the Nas record.
Illmatic.
No, not Illmatic, was 93.
So
It Was Written. Had like the message was on that. If I Ruled the World, all that stuff. Fuji's The Score was out earlier that summer. Gosh, just so many incredible classic records, hip hop records. And that propelled me into hip hop big time. But then I started to dabble, and I don't even know where this came about. House music. Now, something we were talking about a little earlier is that like our parents, like house music wasn't a thing for them. That was more like early to mid 80s, I would say. And you would have to have really been in the scene, Paradise Garage. And it was more urban in the early days of house. And I'm like trying to think like where was I hearing my first house track and why? There was always for me an allure of club culture, right? The Tunnel, Sound Factory, and Twilo were big when I was in 7th grade. And there was like, I was just like, oh, I want to go and hang out at these places.
yeah.
And I was able to actually go to a place called Carbon, which then became Exit, which is now Terminal 5, over there on 54th Street. I was able to go there at 13 years old, and it was just like mind blowing. And
That's
it just like
crazy.
changed my perspective. Well, I was into DJing at that point, and I would go to the middle school dance, and my buddy, who was like a junior at the time, they were going out at night after DJing. So I actually put down like my first ever live, like 2 or 3 songs at this middle school dance. I'm like, yo, why don't you come out to Carbon with us? I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but yeah, let's do this. So like got dressed up, got as old looking as I could, and went to this place, Carbon. And the first song I heard when I walked in, I can remember this day, was Freight Train by Robbie Tronco. If you guys don't know it, go check it out. Go sample it. It'll be a dope track to be remixed. And literally there's a part in it where like there's a horn, like as if the train's going by, and it was shaking the outside of the building. Like uncontrollably. Like this is as I'm walking in. Crazy. And I think that was where it was like, okay, I want to DJ house music.
Yeah.
Forever. So yeah, that's a little bit of that was, and then there was always the pipe dream of DJing in New York City nightclubs.
Right. Because that New York City nightclubs were the thing then.
There, you know, you can probably go back and look up the history of like late 90s New York City nightlife, and it's really outside of the very short period of, I don't think anybody really realizes how short of a time that Studio 54 was open. So outside of that short period of time that Studio 54 was open, I think the late 90s were like the heyday of New York City clubs. And then
Go ahead.
Giuliani came in and shut it all down.
I'm waiting for you to create the like New York nightlife history podcast or write the book.
You know what? I feel like there should be a really good
There
book.
probably are. There probably are some good ones out there.
I've looked. Like I think a really cool idea. If anybody's listening that would be interested in doing this, like I think it'd be cool to have, because there's plenty of pictures from back then, and then the flyer game back then. That was how you were getting the word out. You know, there was no social media, so flyer game was strong.
Yeah.
Sound Factory had some of the greatest. They weren't just flyers; they were posters that they would have. You can go back on Jonathan Peters' Facebook page actually, and people post them all the time. They're great. But yeah, there was just so much good stuff happening back then. Junior Vasquez was playing every weekend. Madonna was going to all those parties, and that's how he became her official remixer. Just a lot of really great history. I'm a history junkie when it comes to anything that I do. Like if you get into sports, I feel like it's something that I think I've talked about this. Like Coach Hurley always said, like you should know the history of what you're doing. If you don't know the history of what you're doing, then you don't belong there, because you have to kind of know what came before you in order to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know? And I think if you're a student of whatever you do, you're going to be that much better because you can pick up on all those little intricacies along the way that everybody else put in. But anyway, I went off on a tangent.
No, I think being a student of whatever you do is great, because you're right. Like if you know, like you could hear songs now and you're like, oh, well, I know that's a sample, when like a lot of people don't know that it's a sample,
Right.
or I know the original, or you know, I think there's some value there, and I think that allows you to put different genres together, and it allows you as a DJ to go from the 70s to house music in the 2020s or whatever, you know?
It gets harder as you get older because you become a little more jaded, because your knowledge becomes more vast. So your creativity, you might think is stale, where like a 21-year-old might be like, whoa, that was fucking crazy.
Right.
But when you're 21 and you're just starting out and you throw records together that are sampled, you're like, you think that's the best shit that ever was.
Some of our DJs have seen success because they grew up in musically talented families and they know a lot of older music, so that when they go to, and they're 21, 22, 23, and they go to a venue and they need to switch it up from what they're used to playing, they have the skills and the knowledge to be able to go to different places no matter the crowd. So I think there's an advantage in that as well.
There is. And I'm going to, shout out a couple of guys. Like Tone said, it has a great knowledge of older music and new music and all different types of music. I think Angelo the Kid's another one that has just a vast knowledge of just has a deep catalog in his mind. Cheesy's another.
Oh my God. Right. Dario does too. All these guys do.
Right. Yeah. They're all excellent with that stuff. So, I think you would agree, if you play a couple more private gigs, I think it furthers your knowledge in different genres.
Well, yeah, it forces you to learn about and download and listen to and string together some tracks that you might not have ever played. So yeah, I've been one lane in the style of music that I get really, really into. And private events have forced me to kind of be like, oh yeah, Kareem, there's this other stuff, like go learn about what the top 50 pop songs are, or the top tracks from the 60s. And like it allows you to go do homework on certain genres and increases your knowledge. So definitely.
I feel like also, just to speak to current times, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's a resurgence in the super open format set where it's embraced by more crowds than maybe it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. I think like Spotify and streaming allows people to be open to hearing a lot of different types of stuff. Like Spotify, there's all these playlists and they create playlists based on the things you listen to. So I think, there is some good in having these services that open up the catalog to people somewhat.
I'm also wondering if, I don't know, if this is really super current, where it's like post pandemic, where like the fun sing along stuff, like even if you do have to be sitting down or you're at your table, like it makes it a little more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Where it's not just like uns in your face all day long. Like there are these songs that maybe your parents listen to, or you just know them because they're just pop hits, See, I feel like DJ AM, if he were still alive, like right now, would be thriving again. I feel like there would have been a little gap where people got bored, the EDM boom happened, hip hop got big for a while. I just see this resurgence, and even just like throwing a Motown track on, and it might work in the middle of your set.
Yeah.
People are going to sing along and have fun with it. So that's something. And now, obviously, if anybody's ever heard me DJ, and this is most DJs my age and our age, that like DJ AM's a huge influence, and a main reason why DJs do super open. I'm not talking about just open format. I mean like really stretching the boundaries of genres. He's definitely the main reason why that became popular, right?
Yeah,
But
I would agree, definitely.
But like I said, then EDM got big, and we've had ebbs and flows in 2010 to 2020, and then I think we're settling back into you can get away with bar music anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're dead on when you say like a lot of the sing along stuff right now is really working, and for the exact reason you said why it is, and I find that that's the case no matter what venue we're in. Like the corny, not even corny, just super popular over the years stuff.
Yeah.
Those vocals are really working.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the edits that people are making, that there's a lot of vocals from the past that are being reused in a new way. And those are really hitting right now. So
yeah, some people are digging deep, and I'm loving some of like some stuff that I'm like, whoa, like wouldn't even think that that's a throwback. And then I go and look at it, and I'm like, well, that vocal came out in 09 or in 10, and it's now 11 years old, and I can throw this back into my set. It's kind of nice.
No, I definitely agree. We just went on a really long tangent. I think it was awesome. But I'm going to circle us back right now. Okay. Because actually I'm going to just tell you how I got into house music.
Okay.
First, because I didn't do that. So when I came back from college, I was still really into hip hop, and I immediately started getting shore houses at the Jersey Shore. So we would go down the shore, and we would always go to certain venues that kind of played more open, or kind of played a little bit of everything, where they played hip hop. And we never really went to a lot of the more housey spots down there because we were more into hip hop. When I was in college, I got introduced to Tiesto and Armin and Paul Oakenfold. So like I started dabbling into house music, and down the shore in Jersey, obviously there's a lot of house music dance places. So we would have houses, and there would be our neighbors or friends who would be going to DJs or going to Headliner or a surf club, which were like at the time, like real like Guido type places where it was all house music, a lot of meatheads, like a lot of hair gel, shaved arms. We were like kind of against it, but like we met this group of
the old sandpaper walk by.
We met this group of girls who lived next to us who were always trying to get us to go to DJs. So finally we were like, all right, let's go to DJs. And we had a really good time. And then we went back again. We had a really good time. We went back again. We had a really good time. And like, we just started meeting people there. We met a bartender. Now we're getting hooked up. So like when you're there and having fun, and there's good looking people, and like you're starting to learn the music, it's just like an easy way to get put onto a new style and a new genre. And like, just like I dug super deep into my hip hop stuff, I then started diving super deep into the house stuff. And that's kind of where my love for house music started.
the Jersey Shore at that time, around when we were in college, and then maybe post college a year or two. No, not post college. I'm sorry, around college. They introduced me to 134 house music at the time, which was much slower than kind of what like those other guys that you just cited.
Yeah.
They were playing like 140. It was like trance. So like Armin, Tiesto, they were all playing trance, and the city was bringing all those guys in. And then down the shore, you'd go see Denny Chetos. You'd go see Victor would be playing down there, Calderon. Um, JP would do guest sets down at Surf Club every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys ran the circuit down there, just like the guys now run the circuit down there.
But like that was like they were doing like 130, 132, where like the popular thing to do was like 140.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting, me coming from partying in the city a lot to go and partying in the Jersey Shore. It was a completely different crowd. Number one, it was very Guido. You know, like you said, a lot of juiced up fellas and fake boobs all over the place.
Yeah.
And then more importantly, the music was just completely different, more danceable. You know, the drug use in the clubs were still the same, whether you were in the city or down the shore. But it was really nice to get to know like this completely different genre of house music, and you know, really broadened my horizons, at least in the fact that there were different genres of house music. It wasn't just one lane, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Man, it feels good going down memory lane sometimes and like talking about. I had to like think about this stuff really for a little bit because I don't know, we haven't really talked about it too much. So
we've never really talked about it off air, forget on air. So
yeah.
I didn't know a lot of, you know, I asked you prior to this why and how you got into house music, just knowing that you were a hip hop junkie.
Yeah.
You know, having that knowledge, I never knew anything past that other than the fact that you started DJing and maybe you just had to do it, you know?
Yeah. Man,
Go ahead.
the other thing that we'll transition into kind of like how we then transition into actually being DJs and working, and like I think the big thing is like that luck is super important, especially when you're first starting. I mean, even now luck is really important, but when you're first starting, you need that first opportunity. So like I don't know how was luck involved in getting your first shot
My first, well,
or just getting going in DJing. You got to have somebody that will vouch for you or put you on or.
Well, ironically enough, those guys that brought me out when I was 13 years old, they one of them, their mom owned a bar later on in life. So when I was 17, when I was a junior in high school. And that's where I got my first DJ gig. And then really my first like break, like where I was playing a good club, was not too far later, maybe maybe 2 years later. I played, or 3 years later, I played Y Bar, and that was through somebody who was a promoter that was from my town. It was always like this small amount of people in my town that were trying to be promoters, club managers, whatever it might be. And then I was also promoting at the time too for Sound Factory and Exit, trying to get my foot in the door to DJ, to open a room one night. And it just like, it never happened, but like you were just meeting people and getting lucky, walking into people like, oh, I have this other place.
Well, I think there's also like an easy transition where you're going out a lot and you're meeting a lot of people. And then you kind of start promoting. And then you're like, well, I love the music, so maybe I'll try DJing. And it's just like an easy progression for people.
Yeah, I think that's more common, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had already been DJing for 5 years, you know, bedroom DJing, until that's when I got my first gig, and then was promoting, I guess, at 18 for, like I said, Sound Factory, because it was 18 and over at the time, which I don't even think that doesn't exist anymore, does it?
Rarely. There'll be some teen parties here and there, but
jeez. Yeah, so that was kind of that. But then I became a New York City DJ before I became a Jersey DJ. So like I was really running the circuit doing 49 Grove. I was a resident at 49 Grove for 2 years. I was a resident at Ultra Bar for a couple of years. Like I said, I played Y Bar, which was a huge spot. Like AM played there. a bunch of really good DJs had played there, but like I was there like you would be when it was like burning out, and they were just like looking for. I brought in 100 people the night that I played, so I was like I was that kid bringing 100 people in, at like 20, and then when I was playing Ultra, some guy named Chris Lothar came up to me and was like, "Oh, I think you should play my spot in Hoboken." I was like, "Wow!" I was like, I haven't gotten into the Hoboken market. I've wanted to. I'm interested to see what it's all about. And then that's how West 5 happened. So,
and the rest is history.
The rest is history. And then Get Down DJ group came of that. But
yeah, I think when it comes to luck, right? People always ask the question like, can you make your own luck? And is it luck, or is it skill? Is it combination? Whatever it might be. I think the big thing when you're starting out is like, it's all about your network. You're right, because all your friends or people you know who are going out were trying to help you. Same thing for me. I was playing backyard parties and any party that I could set my stuff up, I would go play because I just wanted to play for people, Right. And in that journey, you meet people who then know other people or work at a certain place. And it was similar for me where one of my friends growing up, she had friends who worked at West 5 in Hoboken. So we used to hang out there a lot. And, I kind of knew some people there, and I ended up playing a party in Hoboken for Super Bowl. And another one of the managers from West 5 was there. Her name was Rebecca. And she's like, you should definitely come play at our spot, West 5. And I'm like, okay. Then I met Chris Lothar, and Chris Lothar's like, you should play Tuesday and Wednesday night or whatever. But yeah, it was always about like the first few times bringing out a lot of people. And even if you're terrible, you can still do that. And it's like, we got lucky because people heard us play who could make decisions. Like,
and that's, we always say this, you never know who's in the room, right? And you got to play. You have to play like somebody extremely important that can get you booked is in the room, no matter if it's a vibe dining party, whether it's a brunch that you're doing, that there are older people there. You still have to rock out to the best of your ability creatively, in a way that you have your own sounds, and that, if somebody's there, they'll be impressed and say, hey, maybe I'll give you a shot at X, Y, and Z place.
Right.
I think that gets lost sometimes, especially if you start DJing a lot. Like if you become a DJ that's booked every Friday and Saturday, you can get very comfortable. We've had a conversation about this numerous times. You just have to stay on your toes constantly, and if you are one of those DJs that is getting booked a lot, just remember, like, you just don't know who's going to be in the room. I think when Chris Lothar was at my venue, Ultra, I think it was probably like my 15th time playing there. I could have just played the same old, set or whatever it might have been and been very comfortable, and so like, keep sharp and always be on your shit for sure.
I can't tell you how many times someone hearing me play, once I started playing like the Hoboken circuit, how many times that's gotten me bigger and better gigs or corporate opportunities or New York City or travel. Like, and you're right. As you start to DJ more, you're like, oh, well, this place isn't as good as my best place I play. And maybe you don't give it your all, but like on a Wednesday night and you're playing some random thing, like nightlife people are off. Maybe they're out on Wednesday and 3 managers of bars in Hoboken are at the Zog Sports, whatever is happening in town on a Wednesday, and there's 50 people there. Like, you just really never know. So
there's a better chance for people to be in the room on those off nights.
That's what I mean.
Right. A way better chance. So yeah, you're right about that.
And the same thing goes at networking opportunities and like putting yourself out there and introducing yourself to people. Like, it all goes hand in hand that you do need to create some luck in the fact that you have to make an effort to be out and about and meet the right people.
Yeah.
Or like Legati said last week, send the extra email, do the extra work to find the list of program directors or the list of bar managers or whatever that might be. Like, yeah, it sucks sitting there trying to figure that out, but it's valuable.
Yeah. And that never ends.
Yeah. And like,
It never ever ends.
right. And like we started this whole conversation talking about new DJs, but it's equally as important as established DJs, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to leave your market? Do you want to book the best club in your market? Do you want to like meet or whatever, produce bigger record? Like, there's just so many things. It's the same. It's the same mindset.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. So big shout to Chris Lothar, who created Get Down DJ Group.
Shout out to
Oh
Chris
man.
Lothar, man. I miss Chris Lothar. I've been meaning to pop over. He's over at a spot called House of Q now.
Yeah, my whole family went over there. Well, not my whole family. My sister and my mom went over there with a couple of friends of ours, a couple of my sister's girlfriends, and they went for brunch there. They said it was amazing. They had a great time, but apparently you need to be making reservations far in advance. So if anybody's listening and wants to go check that place out, definitely do so. Food's good, drinks are good. Wow, a little House of Q plug.
Yeah. All right, man. I think this is a great place to stop.
Yeah.
I don't know. This episode is probably way different than previous episodes you guys have heard, but I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit of our stories and some things that got us motivated and passionate about music and pursuing this DJ life.
Yeah.
So,
hopefully you guys took a little something out of it.
Quick plug. So we are doing a webinar. It's a free webinar. It is Wednesday, April 7th.
Yeah.
And it is going to be completely around creating a 7-day social media plan. We're going to give you guys all the tips and tricks and the templates and the things that we use to create our social media plan. And I know it can be overwhelming sometimes. I know it's something that we all want to have looking nice and not stressing about. So if you guys want to join the webinar, it's free. You have to register. So we will put the link in the show notes and in our bio on Instagram. So if you guys want to do it again, it's Wednesday, April 7th. It's at 5 p.m. and it's creating a 7-day social media plan.
Yeah, I mean, super important. It's almost like, those would be our social media has become our press kits essentially over time. It's the first thing that any venue looks at when they're looking at DJs or checking you out as a prospective DJ. So really, really important stuff. So yeah, guys, register for that. Check in. It'd be great to see you there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks for checking out this episode. Thanks for supporting us as always. We appreciate you. Yeah. My name's Kareem.
Gary W.
We'll see you guys next week.
All right. Peace.
Peace.